Okay, we're going to start, and hopefully that will encourage others to join us around the table. We've got a quorum of councillors here already. So we'll just make a start. Is that all right? So we are strengthening the Youth Council, Older Persons Council and Disability Advisory Group. Fantastic piece of work and really look forward to hearing about it.
Oh, thank you. Morning, everyone. Today, yes, as the Mayor said, we are here to talk to you about the work done so far on the strengthening of the advisory groups, the terms of references. So we've got Monique and Emma here from the Connected Communities team. Spent quite a bit of time on this piece of work the last, 6 months maybe at least. Just wanted to say that the group so far have been really engaged, very excited about this piece of work. In fact, 2 of them are coming to Martin's Social Sustainability Committee next week to talk about the engagement so far. And so today we're here just to talk to you about the process that we've been through, look at what's changed in the documents, and then just kind of talk about the next steps with the groups and what we're proposing over the next couple of months. And so I'll pass over to Emma.
Kia ora koutou. So, as Brendan said, we've been reviewing the advisor groups, the community representative advisor groups over the last, about 6 months. So when I came in to council about July last year and met with the advisor groups, there was a lot of talk around we're not quite feeling like we are being as effective as we could be. We're really keen to make some changes. And council at the same time was doing an overarching review, or kicked off an overarching review of advisor groups, panels and a whole bunch of things. So this work comes under that umbrella in terms of that work, and you'll hear about what they're doing in that space at a later stage. So just relates to the Disability Advisory Group, the Older Persons Council and the Youth Council. So these advisory groups are our community advisory groups that come along and talk with us about those communities that they represent. So the Youth Council, obviously they're coming in and they are representing young people, young people's age group 12 to 24. The Youth Council, a little bit narrow of an age group, and that's something that we're looking at as well, around age representation for the Youth Council. Older Persons Council has operated as an open forum for a long time, and of older people in our community 65 and over. And the Disability Advisory Group, they're all set up about the same time, actually, in the early 2000s, so they've been with us for a long time. The Disability Advisory Group is focused on providing advice around people with disabilities and how our council can be more accessible, and issues in our community, and advocacy role for people with disabilities within council. So they're not technical experts. They don't represent a sector. They don't come in from a particular organisation. They are people in our community from those communities. And they're volunteers. That's another really important thing to remember too. So in terms of our advisory groups, they all have a very similar purpose. They provide feedback and ideas around the communities they represent. So a council group will come in and say, hey, we're working on this strategy, what do you think? And get some feedback from that particular group in our community. They act as a conduit between the broader community and the council. So they will bring things in too and say, hey, this is kind of percolating in our community, and they'll bring that along and discuss it as an advisory group, and it may go to other parts of council, or it may be something that they want to look at themselves. And they advocate for the communities as well. That kind of connects to the conduit part of it, but for example, the Disability Advisory Group, when Work and Income moved from this side of Coastlands to the other side, there were some concerns within that Disability Advisory Group around accessibility. So they wrote a letter and kind of raised their concerns in relation to that. So that's an example of advocacy that's been done. So yeah, we came in, so when I came in, the groups, all 3 of them were really keen to have a look and a bit of a think about what was working. And so in terms of that, we have undertaken, I would say, a really robust process in terms of working alongside them. We've tried to do a really good co-design process so that we're not just going in, having a bit of a listen to what they think and then going off and creating something. Within that, each advisor group have their own unique process. So we have tailored it to the way that a youth council works and to make sure that that's been good youth participation and decision making, and the other groups as well in terms of the differences between those groups. And the OPC, like I said, has been an open forum. So at different times in the process, we've had different people coming in to meetings and bringing their thoughts as well into it. So basically when we kicked off, we went into an opportunity for the groups to come together and have a workshop during one of the meetings to just kind of throw ideas out there, as well as doing interviews. So some of those interviews were one-to-one, and it was for anyone in the group to come along and just have a chat with us. We kept them really, really informal, and they were confidential as well. So some people decided to come along in pairs, some people came individually and talked with us about what they thought was working, what they thought should change. And there were some really strong themes that came out, which were actually similar across the three groups, which is interesting too, and I'll get to those soon. Then we kind of went back and forth because co-design needs that kind of back and forth with coming along and going, hey, this is what we heard, here are the things we're hearing. Is that what you're feeling still, or are there other things that we've missed out on that? So we did a bit of that in terms of each of the meetings, coming back and checking in with the themes. And then the strong connect with the groups right through the entire thing, if we tweaked anything as we move towards the terms of reference, was with the two chairs of the Disability Advisory Group and the Older Persons Council, who were there along the entire process. If there was something that we were looking at tweaking, we would talk to them about it first, and they would advise, hey, let's run it past some people, or I think that that's good to go, let's take it to the meeting. And for the Youth Council, they run a little bit differently. So the Youth Council share their chair role. And so with that, we talked to them about how they wanted to be engaged and do this process alongside us. And there was a little working group of the Youth Council that decided to come together and focus on this and then take that back to the full Youth Council. So the full Youth Council was still involved in their meetings as part of this over October and November and December, but there was a particular core group that were focused in on it as well. The terms of reference, the groups have seen the terms of reference that we're putting to you next week in the council meeting, and have, in a sense, approved in terms of what they think works in terms of the terms of reference. There weren't any issues that we've had with anything in terms of when we've put those to the groups at all. They are completely happy with what is in the terms of reference. And as Brendan said, there's a lot of excitement actually about making these advisory groups more effective. As part of that process as well, we talked with the elected members who are appointed to the advisory groups to get their thoughts and ideas into it. And we also talked with staff who run other advisory groups. We obviously talked to the larger review group in terms of what they're seeing and picking up and their advice. And we also talked with others who have connected with the advisor groups. So staff that would come along to an advisor group to get advice. How was their experience? What could have been better? How can we make this more effective? Because at the end of the day, these advisor groups exist for our community, but they exist for council. So it's really important that we are getting what we need out of the advisor groups. We talk to the advisor groups about this. So how can we make sure that we are doing right by you when we bring ideas to you, we bring strategies or things for you to have a look at, and give you the opportunity to give good advice and then get back to you at the end of it. So that was a really important part of the process as well. So co-designed, agreed to an improved terms of reference. And when I say that, all three groups' terms of reference prior were very, very old. So they kind of didn't even know they really had a terms of reference. operating. So these are pretty fresh and brand new. It's not just a slight tweak to a terms of reference, it's a complete new terms of reference. And I think the other thing to say in relation to this is when you look at the 3 terms of reference, they look like a very, very similar documents. There's several reasons for that. The themes that we had coming out across the 3 were very, very similar. They were strong themes across all 3 groups. A terms of reference has key things in it, obviously, in terms of content, like how a meeting is run and quorum and things like that. And also we could potentially have said, hey, the 3 advisory groups, we want to have 1 terms of reference and then list you in it. But the advisory groups are really, really clear that while they see the synergies, they wanted to have a document that was their specific document that talked to them about what they were doing. So that's just to explain the reason why when you look at them, you might go, I'm actually struggling to see the difference between these 3, but when you get into them, you can see that. And also, there is another layer of work that happens at the back end of it. So around how we do the operations, and that's where a lot of the uniqueness in these groups is as well. So the 3 key things that we found in terms of the themes that I've been referring to is that people in all 3 advisory groups, and also we heard this from others as well, so staff as well, like wanting to hear from a more diverse group in terms of that advice that we were getting. So part of that was around, so for the Youth Council, there's discussion around ethnicity, geographic, age. So how do we make sure that if we're representing young people who are 18 to 24, maybe we need to think about how we can engage 18 to 24-year-olds in the Youth Council, or have some way where those young people can have a voice within the Youth Council. It's not necessarily we must have, 3 20-odd-year-olds in the Youth Council, but making sure that we can hear those voices within it. So that was a really important thing with the Youth Council. The Disability Advisory Group talked a lot about diversity in terms of supporting and involving people with different disabilities within the advisory group. And there is a range, but it's quite a small group at the moment. So they're really keen to make sure that we have a larger group, and making sure they were really concerned about making sure that we can support people who come along to our advisory group. So for example, we don't have a person who's deaf in our advisory group, and they were really thought that was an important thing to be able to have in terms of the support. So in terms of support, so, it's all very well going, it'd be great to have some person who is deaf on the group, but how do we make sure that we support that person properly? So obviously having an interpreter available, but there are more things than that to think about. And then the diversity and representation in terms of the older people, a lot of that focused around geographic diversity and ethnic diversity as well. So again, it was a bit of a theme across the 3 groups around geographic diversity, because the meetings are held here. There tends to be a focus on Paraparaumu, and how do we make sure that we're, it's connecting with older people, young people, and people with disabilities and ōtaki. So some of that is what you do through the terms of reference. You say we're going to have a diverse group, but actually it's in the operations and how we do it on the ground to make sure that that happens, and create ways where we can hear those communities. So it's, again, not necessarily that we have to have everyone on an advisory group, but that they have good channels to be able to connect with those groups. For example, the Youth Council have been talking with Ngā Hapu in terms of their rangatahi leadership group, and also with Te Puna Oranga, their leadership group, about how can we connect with you and hear your voices and make sure that we bring it into our mahi, rather than just saying, hey, does one of you want to be on the Youth Council? Does that make sense? Yeah. The selection process, that came up across all the groups. So the Youth Council was the one that's had the clearest selection process. Young people were selected normally in the beginning or the end of the year. they have a camp and we roll into it. And then the disability advisor group's kind of been more shoulder tapped, which is fine. But what the groups were saying to us is by selecting with us, so not the council going off, but selecting with us, we are able to make sure we are more diverse, that we have the right people at the table, and that we can also make sure that people are inducted well. So that was a big thing that came through. If we start majority of people at the same time in our groups, rather than just throughout the year, we can go, this is what being on this group means. Let's pull together, in a sense, a group culture at that time, and let's induct you into what council's about as well. And the group that also came up, there were lots of discussions around selection, was the Older Persons Council, which is not operated as an open forum. So often people will come, every meeting actually, there'll be often one person in the meeting and you might not see them again. So it's really, really hard to bring someone up to speed in that kind of environment. If we're bringing in council staff to be able to go, hey, we're looking at this particular piece of work. So the Older Persons Council will shift, like the other groups, to being a selected group. We have support for that from the Older Persons Council. In terms of those that have been around for a long time in that group, because I said it's open, we've had some newer members or newer people come in at times as well. But those who have been engaged throughout the process are really supportive of this moving to a selected group. And Kevin will talk more about that, I would have thought, at the Social Sustainability Committee. There will also be a shift in how we improve the way we work with the advisory group. So another key thing that came out was groups saying, it's great that council want to engage. We'd like to see more of that. So more groups coming and talking with us earlier as well in the process. Can we do better engagement, in a sense, is what they were asking, with how we can feed into what you're doing within your programs. So again, that's an operational thing, but in the terms of reference, there's a section around what council will be doing to make sure that we are improving the way we work with our advisor groups. And it includes things like, how do we recognise and value our advisor groups, as well as how do we make sure when we're actually in the room and afterwards, how do we feed back to them around what we're doing and what the decisions are that were made. So what's next? Once we present the paper next week, and at that meeting, I think the two chairs will be there again, the Older Persons Council chair and the chair of the Disability Advisor Group. The Youth Council are keen to be there, but they do have schools, so they won't be at the Social Sustainability or the council meeting. And then we move into recruitment. So there's a recruitment plan ready to hit the ground. The idea is that it's really open and accessible, and there'll be lots of opportunity for people to meet up and have a bit of a chat if you may be interested in it. There'll be face-to-face meetings in the library where they can come along and have a talk with Nordia about what it means if you're keen on applying for the Disability Advisory Group. We're going to make it as simple as possible and promote it widely. Those that are in all those groups are not, they can come and apply, and it's not going to be, we're going to be rejecting you if you're on the Youth Council. You are on the Youth Council, you're on the Youth Council. But what we're asking them is to come back to us and say a little bit about where they're at with being on the Youth Council. It's an opportunity for them to go, yep, I'm all in, or I might just be there until the end of the year as well. And the same with the other groups. So we're encouraging those who come along to OPC to apply to be part of that, and the Disability Advisory Group. So once we get through that recruitment, we move into selection, and the selection will be done with the chairs of those groups and with the Youth Council, with members of the Youth Council who are selected by the Youth Council to hold that role for selection. And then the Mayor is involved in the selection of the advisor groups as well. It means we have a couple of months that we are not having a advisor group meeting, because advisor group meetings take a pause and then they re-kick off with these new terms of reference. So in late May, we'll be doing induction processes, and the first meetings will be held in June. We normally take a break over the December, January, February, so that will shift in the future back to that December, January, February, rather than having a pause in the middle of the year where we recruit a new membership. That makes sense. And that's pretty much it. Has anyone got any questions about that?
No slide that says questions, question mark?
Yes, sorry, no. But I do for later today.
But I'm guessing you are welcoming questions.
Yes.
Just congratulations on this piece of work. It really sounds like you've brought the groups along with you for the journey, because it will be a time of a little bit of transition and change. So, yeah, well done. Liz?
Yep, thank you. So am I right in saying that all memberships are now up for grabs? So you're starting from square one and recruiting, so, but presumably the incumbents can apply to join a new group, is that correct?
Yeah, so the Disability Advisory Group and the Youth Council have been selected prior, so those members are members. The Older Persons Council has not had a membership, it's just an open forum, people come in. All of that group will be asked to apply. The Disability Advisory Group, because they have already been selected, will be checking in with them, talking about the new terms of reference and getting their interest in that. So we, in a sense, if an advisory group member from a disability advisory group is keen to be on board, they're there with the terms of reference, they understand what it is, then they are in terms of the membership. That makes sense. The Youth Council is the same thing. So we're not trying to remove existing members. The Older Persons Council is different because they have not previously been selected. It's just anyone can turn up. So we're saying to the Older Persons Council, or anyone who's turned up, come and apply, please.
But I'm just wondering about the transparency of this. So, like, a member is someone that, so you have that, ongoing sort of involvement. But what if there's people in the community that aren't aware of these groups currently who, if it was advertised, would have thought, oh, gosh, I'd love to be part of that? I mean, surely...
Oh, absolutely, we're doing that. We're absolutely doing that. So we don't have high numbers. We only have 5 to 6 active members in the Disability Advisory Group. So and I think there are a couple of them that are not interested in continuing on. So we have a few people that will come in as existing members, including the chair, to continue on in that role. And all those other positions, so we're looking at about 14 members, are available. It's a small group. And with the Youth Council, there is, I think, about 10 who are active members, and that group can expand up to 20. Yeah.
Right, so you're looking at rolling over the existing members for those ones, but then bringing in some new ones as well, is it?
That's right, but it's not a total rollover. There is a meeting that will discuss what is your commitment, do you understand it, are you committed to the new terms of reference?
Yeah, otherwise, see you later.
Yeah. Well, yeah, in a lovely way.
In a nice way.
Or if it's been someone, for example, the Disability Advisory Group has kind of got lower numbers. The Youth Council, there have been some members in the Youth Council, for example, that haven't been able to make meetings. We'll be having a discussion with them. Is this something you're still interested in? How can we help you to be a part of this? What do you want to do in relation to that?
Okay.
And also, obviously, this is where we're going with the Youth Council. This is what the role is. Do you understand and are you committed to that?
So
that
I've got a
makes
couple of
sense.
other questions, if I may continue just for a minute. One is, how do these people, once they're recruited, or how long is the term for, if you like? And to what extent do we expect them to engage with the wider community? So if they're there representing certain groups, to what extent are they running workshops or meetings with the community at large in order to get feedback? So that's a couple of questions there, and I've also got questions around how we support these groups, because this is a vital part of community engagement. We're often criticised for not listening to our community. This is a really important aspect of that, of being able to listen to our communities and groups within our community and use that to guide what we do. So it's vitally important, but I'm really concerned about, how closed those groups might be, to what extent they are engaging in the wider community. That seems to me really important, and to increase awareness of the fact that they exist and how people can get in touch with them, because they are an important conduit. Yeah, but also just how we provide support.
So they're advisory groups. So that's your opinion about how much our expectation is to on them to engage on our behalf. So I just don't want the team to think that that's a general expectation of the table. That's your personal expectation. But so presumably we will have asked these questions of the groups and gone through this as part of the development of the terms of reference. So maybe, Emma, if you could make some comment about where we got to with that discussion in terms of the terms of reference for each group, that would be great.
So first of all, the membership term is for 2 years, and then at that point they can reapply for another 2 years. They can request a leave of absence as well, so if they need some time off, that will be considered as well in terms of the membership. In terms of connecting with the community at large, there is a big part of the conversations with all three has been, how do you get to be representative? How actually can you be representative? And so it's been focused on things like, if I'm from a particular community, then I want to get out there and find out what's happening in my part of the world in relation to the group that I'm representing. So, for example, if I live in Paraparaumu Beach and I'm an older person, I want to have a good understanding of what's going on for older people in that particular space. Or I'm a member of a social older persons group. That's how I'm going to connect in with what's going on for older people. So the advisor groups have a role in it's more as a touch point. So for a lot of council work, the advisor group can be a really good opportunity for staff to come along and go, what do you think about this? And then they will advise too on what other kinds of ways to connect with their group. So it's not on, for example, the Youth Council to be the only way that we connect on a piece of work with young people, but they could advise on, or they can connect as well. So the Youth Council at time will say, this is great. What are you doing to go? They'll ask staff, what are you doing to connect with young people in this particular community, and offer at times to be able to support that happening. But so they are a touch point in terms of that work rather than the be all and end all.
Yeah, well, that was my concern. Are they the be all and end all? Yeah. And so the other point, because I know there's been issues in the past around support, like for the Youth Council and so on, have we resolved that in terms of the administrative support and that kind of thing? Is that being looked at as part of this review?
So the, excuse me, and I have got a little bit of a cold, so apologies. So through this, we have the resource with the advisor, so the youth advisor role, supporting those more regular meetings, and that's something we'll kind of work through as traditionally we had a youth council coordinator role, and so we've been seeing if we could cover it because we have lowered resources in the community space, and so seeing if we can manage that, and through this if we're finding that we don't have enough support, that would be something we have a wider conversation on.
Yeah, because I just wondered whether we can tap into the likes of Volunteer Kapiti or something like that to, build a relationship there, where we're using volunteers perhaps to provide some of that admin support.
I'll get Brendan to comment on that in the absence of Darren, if that's all right, Brendan. The use of volunteers to do work for us as council.
Well, I mean, we're looking at how can we do things.
It's a good
more
question.
cost-effectively.
It's a good question, but I think it's a question for a group manager to answer.
Yeah, there's probably no easy answer to that. We do have a fairly good relationship with Volunteer Kapiti at the moment, and we do use them across council a bit, particularly through supporting some of our events, some of the larger events that we run. They provide a bit of support. The volunteer space is it is a tricky one nowadays. You know, with health and safety, child protection, safeguarding, all those kind of rules in place. So it's not as simple as anymore as just kind of calling up people to come and support. There is a process that we should be going through or need to be going through to make sure that the people we are using to support our work kind of tick all the boxes that we would normally put in place for staff, essentially. So there's kind of the expectation now that volunteers tick all the same boxes that our staff tick when we go through that recruitment process. So it's not an easy answer. I think generally there is always that intention to work as close as we can with these community groups, including volunteer kapiti. So we can keep exploring that.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Who's next? Martin.
Yep, hi guys, this is great, thanks. Great to see the work coming through. Look, just a quick question. I made an assumption that these terms of reference were coming to the Social Sustainability Committee next week, but I see that they're not. So just for clarity, we've got deputations coming to the Social Sustainability Committee next week. If they talk to us about the terms of reference, we've got nothing. Is the terms of reference coming to the council meeting at the end of next week?
The terms of reference are coming on the 27th to council. The deputations from the chairs will cover the main points of the terms of reference in social sustainability.
Right, is it possible to get those circulated to the Social Sustainability Committee members? There might be some that... Yep, that's not my committee though, that's the council. That'll be on the council one, so I don't know whether all the committee members that are on the community boards have access to those documents. I don't know, but it could be really, it could be a little bit confusing if it could just be circulated, perhaps tomorrow when that agenda comes out, just if they could just be circulated to the Social Sustainability Group. So we're not commenting, so just clarity, the Social Sustainability Committee is not commenting on these. I think I actually suggested that we just jump over the Social Sustainability Committee because it was going to be a council of the whole anyway. It's just a little bit of chicken and egg for things. So it'd just be nice to be able to reference them. That was my first one. Cool.
So I just had a suggestion around that. Maybe it'd be better if we just get the terms of reference through council, complete the piece of work, and then just have an information session for Social Sustainability Committee. Do you think that would work, Martin?
Well, in
Just to get
theory,
it on
by
the
the time it's
record and
gone
the-
through, my thought is that you know all the councillors and community board chairs are at the council meeting anyway, so it'll all get covered then. As such, there'd be no reason why we couldn't do it at the one after this one. We could touch on it, but I don't think there'd be much of a need to. We could certainly incorporate it into the next Social Sustainability Committee for feedback, if you like, as part of the agenda for the next one.
Okay,
Absolutely.
well, we'll park that and take it offline.
Yep. And my other question was when we're talking about supplying support to these groups, are we supplying a secretariat to the meetings that they do hold? I was under the impression that I thought we did that anyway, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, we do.
Cool. No, that's it. I think that's it from me. Sorry, one other thing. So these committees will sit from a deputation perspective under the Social Sustainability Committee, is that correct? Well, we've got deputations coming into the next Social Sustainability Committee, so I'm picking they are. Just not a problem.
I don't think sit under is the right word because they are autonomous.
Reporting to.
Yeah, but they're like one line of communication for them could well be the Social Sustainability Committee.
No,
in
I
terms
don't want
of
to well be. I
sharing.
want to know whether it is or it isn't.
They don't. Nothing sits under the Social Sustainability Committee. People report to the Social Sustainability Committee, but the Social Sustainability Committee doesn't control them or.
Not saying they control them, perhaps it was just a wording thing, but there is a clear line through the Social Sustainability Committee at the moment. Otherwise, why we... So you're saying as deputations they can go, I suppose they could come and present to any group that they want, but I thought we were establishing sort of like a regular touchstone through that as part of that strengthening process.
That's a good question. Yeah. What's
Yeah.
the role of the Social Sustainability Committee through all of this?
So in the terms of reference, it says a committee of council. And at times the advisory groups will be needing to come to council for things that don't come under social sustainability.
Absolutely fine.
So I think that's the idea, that they go to where they need to go to, and when it relates to social sustainability, they would be there. If it's environmental, they're likely to go to the environmental committee. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's cool. Just clarifying. I'm happy either way. It's not a problem at all. And so I just wanted clarity. Where does the youth council? So the youth council would sit pretty much the same way then, wouldn't it? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Fine. Thank you.
The only issue with the youth council is that our meeting times don't work for them. So we just have to work a different way around how we get the youth council to report into council.
Would it be helpful if I don't know, some of us came to the youth council because of the timing issue? In other words, having a representation come from the Social Sustainability Committee to the youth council to see if there's anything they wanted to touch base with at a time that's perhaps more suitable for the youth council. We've got that flexibility.
Yeah, I think that's something we as chairs could just be more mindful of, that we could always be going to these groups and updating them as well. Yeah.
We've got councillors
That's a good
allocated. I
point.
mean, Kathy's allocated to the Older Persons Council Disability, that sort of thing there as well. But from that, just specifically that, but they can come along during the day. Let's just say the youth council sounds like they've got some constraints, so we just might have to just pop something in place here. But I think that can be discussed. So you're just flagging it as something to discuss.
Yeah, really good thing to raise is how they report back, and a committee of council. Yeah, that makes sense because there are different kind of areas that they're interested in, but just maybe a little bit of firming up about how we have that interaction and feedback. Shelley?
Mine is just around how the community does engage with these advisory groups, because I'm on the CWB advisory group, and supposedly there's time allocated at the beginning of meetings for public to come and engage, but no one ever does. And it's a great group, but it's also a group of people who are focused on what they're focused on. So it would be interesting to define how public can attend and give some kind, if they've got issues, where are they going to do that? In what part of the forum are they going to do that? And putting that out to the public, because I'm sure there's a lot of inquiries that council get, CW, active modes, older people's council, disability, that are not funneled through to those advisory groups because our group is really active and really good, but we're only hearing from our group. So if there are issues, they don't seem to be getting put forward to the advisory group, which would be handy because I don't know what someone else's issues are. I'm only dealing with mine. So in the terms of reference, it would be good to have that defined, that how council is going to funnel those things through to the advisory groups.
So in the terms of reference, it says that visitors, organisations and members of the public can attend and speak at meetings, but it's at the discretion of the chair and the council advisor. And that was with some discussion with the advisory groups about what should come to them and what other things are maybe funneled down other ways, that an individual person with something that they have an issue with in their community might actually not be something that's appropriate for the advisory group, and is actually more appropriate for us to flick through to the person, in parks that deals with that particular playground or whatever it might be. So that was decided, and also the Older Persons Council and the other groups have talked about having open forums at time as well. So that's not in the terms of reference, because we want to give them the ability to be flexible about that, and also remembering that these are volunteers that we've got in our advisory groups. But they've talked about, wanting to go to Otaki, for example, and have a bit of a hui, connect with the community board and invite people to come along and talk to them about the broader things going on in that community, rather than individuals in terms of, this particular thing's going on and they need it fixed. So that's definitely come up and will be a part of developing a work program. So we will be with all of these groups developing a work program, which will have elements of that kind of thing within it. And then all of those visitors will be approved before they come along to members. So there's not an opportunity in a normal meeting to just pop in and say something from the public. It's something that we will be working to plan beforehand. So if someone comes too late for that meeting, then we'll see whether that's appropriate for the next meeting, or actually let's link them up with someone else within council who can support them, help them.
And I was just going to add in as well, sorry,
Yeah.
Emma. Our role is also to promote these, the groups and lift the profile for the community as well. So via the website, and maybe a profile a little bit in the library, spaces where people come to and might want to find out a little bit more. Our challenge is to raise that profile. We'll be looking at that. Thank you.
Sophie?
Yeah, kia ora. I feel like most of my questions have already been asked and answered. Just two though. In the terms of reference, you've referred to the fact that obviously a reporting schedule back through council or to a committee of council will be established and kind of somewhat prescribed in the terms of reference. I've really valued the opportunity to quite informally catch up with, for example, the youth council and the breakfasts that have happened between the councillors and the youth council. If there was some way of I don't know if it's appropriate to write into the terms of reference, but some way of creating accountability so that both council and the youth council or the other advisory groups do carve out time for that kind of informal conversation and discussion. Because yeah, it's really valuable to obviously hear directly through a formal channel, and it's all then recorded and noted. But just to relationship build, I think is kind of a responsibility upon both of us if we want to get good outcomes. So I think maybe that's something to think about, is how we not only keep that as something that could happen, that's kind of floating, that is actually something that's quite fundamental to the working relationship that we have with the advisory groups.
Absolutely. So the minimum is in the terms of reference, in terms of that relationship and connecting through to the committee. But the building of relationship with council, it's the first part of the terms of reference, talks about council's commitment. It talks about building whakawhanaungatanga with these groups as well. And each group was keen to do that, but to do it in their own way and to be able to kind of test that as well. So there was some thoughts about the breakfast that some of it worked, but maybe we should trial something different. So I think that, yes, there's a commitment to do that relationship from both sides, but we need to put that in an operational part of what we're doing so that those groups can shift the way that they do that and build a relationship with the council and keep the minimum, which is that there is a formal reporting line to council, a council committee within there as well.
Okay, cool. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, glad that it's captured. I feel like a lot of this will kind of land when we see the draft terms of reference tomorrow once the agenda's out. The only other question I had was whether the conversations that you had with the 3 existing advisory groups raised any kind of gap analysis of like where we currently don't have an advisory group. I know there were a couple of conversations raised through, for example, Paikakiriki Pride and the kind of the profile that they had been trying to raise across the district. And obviously with the Paikakiriki Pride Parade, whether there are kind of any other cross sections of our community or specific communities within our district that we feel could be served by having an advisory group, and we also feel like that could then serve us and the decisions that council makes. So I'm wondering whether you just looked at the 3 existing ones or also noticed any gaps.
We focused on these 3 community advisor groups, but there is work underway, not in relation to specifically an advisor group, but us doing better in terms of connecting with and hearing the voices of other communities. So, for example, our ethnic and migrant communities, we're kicking off this year to really build a better relationship and connection with that part of our community, and then work out what is best in terms of that engagement as well.
Awesome. Just glad to hear.
For
that that's-
example,
no, but that's really useful that is also part of the kind of wider focus of this. Thank you.
I've started a bit of work on that too. We should have a chat. Kathy?
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for the responsibilities of an appointed elected member being within the terms of reference. It's really good. But I just wanted to say about the disability group, because I've got a sister with an intellectual disability and I feel they're not represented on the group, but if she came, she would get things either upside down or back to front. And there are many people in the community cared for by Community Connections. And we've also got Lash across the road who are well aware of the issues that people with physical and intellectual disabilities face daily. So I was wondering if you'd thought about, or for people like from Community Connections or a representative from Lash could be on the disability group and bring the issues that they see on their day-to-day lives to the council.
The Disability Advisory Group was pretty clear that they felt it needed to be people who have a disability on the group. There are people in our community, I'm sure, who have an intellectual disability who could be supported to be in an advisory group. There are in other places, and I don't see why we could not do that. That doesn't mean that every person with an intellectual disability is able to be on the advisory group, but that there will be people in our community that are passionate about what's going on in their community, and that if we can make sure we work alongside people such as those organisations that you're talking about to make sure that they are able to contribute in a way that works for them, then I don't see why we can't do that.
Oh, okay, so that would be okay for
For someone with an intellectual disability to be in the advisory group, absolutely.
yeah, but with the support worker with them.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry, yes. There is in the disability advisory group terms of reference, we talk about the support people. So absolutely support people are welcome to come along, and definitely we'll be working with those people to make sure that we are doing our side to make sure that those people can be in the room and feel a part of the meeting and get what they need, even just getting here, all of those things. What we do say in the terms of reference is that the support person is there to be the support to that person. They are not there to be a voice in the advisory group. So that is clear. There's a sentence around that in the terms of reference.
Yeah. Just my point really is though that sometimes people with intellectual disabilities don't fully understand, what's going on around them all the time.
Yeah, so that's the role of the support person. And I'm not saying that the support person can't say anything. It's just more, we have had times when we've had support people giving their opinion around something rather than supporting the person that they're with and then passing on their opinion.
Yeah, I know.
Does that make sense?
But they do know from the community what issues are that the people with disabilities do have, is what I'm trying to say, because sometimes people with a disability don't fully understand if it's intellectual.
And the other thing broader is that there will be connections with organisations. So while we don't have those organisations' voice on the Disability Advisory Group, those organisations, we connect to them as a connected communities, but also they will be able to come in and talk about what's going on in the broader community around people with disabilities. So it's not that voice is not heard, they're just not members of the advisory group. And the same with the others as well. So Age Concern coming in and talking to the Older Persons Council about what they're seeing going on for older people and etc.
So you will be in touch with Lash across the road here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. That's all good.
And there's many organisations, that we're networked with.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, thank you. So there was Raumati Community Board obviously drove the development of the new code of conduct for advisory groups. So presumably these positions will be subject to that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's referenced in this, even though the code of conduct is still coming. It's referenced in the terms of reference.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to say well done on this. I like the idea that these groups are talking to each other and they're not being siloed. I did wonder about other groups like, CAB and Volunteer Capity, who have kind of an umbrella role, where they fit into this. Particularly, I'm thinking of CAB, who deal with the kind of fallout from all of these groups just wondering where they fit into this.
We do get some data from CAB in terms of our relationship with them, as we will with other organisations that have information that's important to be shared with an advisory group. So the advisory groups aren't just going out and talking to individuals in the community, they're hearing from organisations what is going on for older people in the community, and CAB particularly would be part of that picture, is part of that picture.
Okay.
Thanks for this work. It's really important and solid. Yeah, well done. Cool. Okay, so we've got another briefing at 1:30, so we'll see you all back then.